It is 4:15 in the afternoon, so it's approaching for me the end of my working day. Whilst I don't tend to have days off really unless I'm away, I do like to work a sort of normal working day in terms of hours. That aside, I have one last project which I am about to go and start, and I've been talking about it for a couple of months now. So I'm heading up the hill in the Brumby, and I'll see you at the top where I'll talk you through what that's going to involve. We have made it up to the top of the property. Not a place we come to very often, you and I actually, but I'll spin you around and show you what this project is looking like from my point of view. So as you can see, we're at the boundary of the house, we're at the boundary of the property which is furthest from the house. You may be able to make out our fence line here. And so this is our back fire break. If I spin round, this is the fire break to the side of the house where I've been slowly working my way up, thinning the dead trees. And this is our turning circle. So what I'm going to do is more or less from this point, this is where I'm starting my footpath repair task. And essentially all that is going to involve is raking the leaves away, and for this section and probably this section only, trimming back some of this regrowth plants. There does come a point here you may be able to make out where sort of the work that I had done stops, and then we're into quite a brackeny section of the fire break, which is on my radar as something to extend further down. But part of the problem with that is this little part of our property isn't fenced, and so I do have slight concerns that if I go too close to the adjacent property, which is a place which hosts visitors and guests, it would be all too easy for them to wander onto our property, which is something that I do prefer to avoid. So I'm not sure what to do. I don't know if I should carry on down part of the way, carry on down all the way and put up a little sign, wait until potentially we've had it fenced, although I don't know if that's even on the cards. Anyway, that's by the by. But essentially it goes down as far as the centre path, and then the footpath system makes its way back to the house. So I'm starting at the top, and I will slowly be working my way down. Very basically, I will be getting the bigger branches, throwing them over there, and then I'll come back with my leaf rake, and then I will finish up with my strimmer. I came up in the Brumby because it's hot and it's very, very steep, but also because I am carrying my trusty battery strimmer, which will be fine for this job, and my leaf rake, and I didn't fancy wending my way all the way up with that stuff in tow. So I'm going to make a start. There we go. I hope you can see the difference. I'm not sure if you will be able to, but essentially I've raked all the way down to there, and then I've strimmed, and I've left my leaf rake I've left my leaf rake propped up against the tree. It's highly unlikely to get stolen. And then I will continue working my way down the hill towards the house, clearing out and re-demarcating the footpath system. So, Operation Footpath has officially begun, and I have set myself the task of trying to get it finished before the end of January. It is January the 8th as I film this, so only a few weeks, but once I get going, you can really motor along. And just to reiterate the reason why I'm doing this, well, this is the fire break, so partly it's to keep the fire break clear. This is why it's quite a lot wider than the footpaths, because, you know, it's allowed to be a certain distance between properties. The footpaths are obviously much narrower, but that aside, the reason I do it is because, well, for a start, this is very, very loose, powdery, dry soil, and it's very slippery to walk on, especially going downhill. And so when you're walking on powdery, slippery soil with rocks and round twigs and branches underneath your feet, it is very easy to slip over. So partly it's to make it easier to walk on, partly it's to make the footpaths easier to see when you are walking on them, and partly it is to make sure that by sticking to the demarcated footpaths, the other parts of the woodlands don't have to worry about being trampled upon, so hopefully that'll improve the biodiversity of the plants that are growing there. And also, as a side issue, I've noticed that even in the footpath network, where it was cleared, those parts of the woodland underwent a slightly different type of damage than the rest of it when the fire came through. So partly it's to help the property in its recovery if a fire were to come through at some point this summer, or realistically next summer, because these should be clear for a couple of years now, more or less. Anyway, we'll see how we go with that. The trouble with these trees is that whilst they're technically evergreen, of course that doesn't mean that they have the same leaves on all the time. They still drop their leaves. So unlike a deciduous tree, which will drop its leaves in a wanna, and then over autumn winter they'll break down and get taken into the soil by the worms or whatever, here they just fall all the time. And because the leaves are relatively toxic and impervious to breaking down and of not much use to anyone, they just sit on the surface. So anyway, different type of problem. Time to head back home. Welcome back. I'm down at the new Woodstore building, as you can see, because, well, frankly, I like to have several projects on the go at the same time. And basically, the planting here is done now, and I've done all that I want to do up in the grevillea garden, largely because if I plant too many new plants at this time of year, which is sort of getting on to mid to high summer, there's just too many plants for me to keep watering because it's so dry. So come to the end of the planting, I have started the footpath project, and if I spin around again, I am carrying on with the kitchen garden project. But there's one little project in here which I am keen to continue with. It sort of went on a bit of hiatus for a while, not helped by the fact that Will's been hauled up for quite a long time now at the seaside, working on various projects. So he has the skills which I lack when it comes to this sort of thing. However, as you might have noticed, the wood bays are getting pretty full now, and so it is time to think more seriously about getting the 5th bay done, which is this one here. And so what that is going to entail is putting down the wood for the floors, which we have, but having learnt the lesson from the previous bays, whereby because we hadn't thought too much about the effect of the slope, the ground slopes both this way and this way, it meant that some of the stacks of wood started to tumble. I think that's just a natural thing that's going to be pretty much inevitable anyway, just because as the wood changes size, it will shift in the stacks. So we have started to stack the wood slightly differently, stack the wood in slightly smaller stacks, but what we are also trying to do is make the platform that the wood is going on more level. We had to do that remedially with the ones we had already built, but I can do it from scratch with the one that is yet to be built, which is what I intend to do. What I'm thinking is, because I can't really dig down here to make this way level, because that would defeat the point of the wood being slightly off the ground. This end of the wood would be ground level basically, and we're trying to avoid that. We want air circulating all around the wood. We don't want the bottom level to get waterlogged. What I had thought of doing instead is using some of the spoil that I'm generating from the kitchen garden project to raise the wood up in the places where it needs to be raised. So, all of that to say, this is my other small project which I'm about to start, and I will update you at certain moments as I go, but I'm just going to make a start by putting the wood down, spacing it out, and seeing what sort of position I am in. End of day update. I have managed to get these 5 bits of wood in position, ready for staking into the ground, ready for the wire mesh to go on top, which I have yet to acquire, but that's another matter. So, as you can see, I have had to go up quite high on some of these bits of wood, just for context. Sort of hand height on some of it. It's done to a standard which I like to describe as adequate. So it's not perfect, but it is definitely better. And you can see just how much I've had to raise it up to get it to a level in both angles. But it should be fine. So as I say, now what I have to do is make some stakes and then put the stakes through the bits of wood and into the ground. Because of the height that I've had to come up, and because I know that eventually this soil is likely to potentially erode away, I have also put additional wood in the front and the middle, so that hopefully that if the soil does erode away, at least the planks have got something else to grab onto. So I'm hoping that whilst I know it should be relatively easy to drill a hole through this, I'm not too sure about this type of thing, but I'm going to give it a go. If that doesn't quite work out, I guess my other plan is to get some softer wood, but which is thicker. This is very hard wood, so we'll see how we go. It's a bit of a work in progress, but at least I know now, if I do have to revise the wood I'm using, the sort of size that I'm going to need. Anyway, that's for another day. I have had a very productive day, as I hope you have too, and I will catch up with you at some point soon. Allow me to introduce you to the newest member of our family, which is this little fridge, which probably sounds like the most mundane thing in the world, and in normal houses it is, but we have really struggled to find a fridge. Haven't we, Vita? When we first moved, we bought a quite large fridge freezer, which was the most energy efficient fridge freezer that we were able to buy, but we struggled to power it, so we ended up sending it the way of Will's parents. And since then we have got by with a cool box, but that has meant freezing ice packs and bottles of water in an industrial fridge and bringing them home 3 times a week, and the food would get wet as the bottles and ice packs would defrost. What I mean by get wet is they would be sitting in pools of water and it would all get a bit manky. So having got back from the UK, we resolved to try and improve the situation and bought this little fridge just after Christmas. I'll open it up, but bear in mind that it's not quite set up properly yet and I don't want to have it open too much, but you get the gist of it. Because there's only 2 of us and because we don't actually refrigerate a lot of food, it is mostly sort of berries and vegetables and a little bit of dairy. We don't need a massive fridge, and we certainly don't need a freezer, and it's very hard to find a little fridge which doesn't have a freezer compartment. and I have a suspicion that that's part of the problem when it comes to things which consume quite a lot of electricity. Anyway, so we found this one, and it is highly energy efficient, and it uses something like 83 kilowatt hours per year, so it's pretty small. We are expecting to potentially not run it 24 hours a day, and certainly not in winter, so it'll be on mostly in daylight hours. Really just enough to keep the food fresh and to keep things ticking over. So that's our latest acquisition. I'll keep you updated to let you know how well our system does cope with it. I've been outside and checked, and it is currently having no impact on the power situation. You can see the number will slide right down, like if I put the pump on for the tank or the washing machine on, you'll see that, but nothing with this. But it is a pretty sunny day. There's slightly hazy cloud, but not enough to trouble the system. So the real trial will come on a cloudy day and in the depths of winter. But everything becomes a trial on a cloudy day in the depths of winter. So I'll keep you updated nevertheless.